Hey everybody, welcome back. And we are here on the second part of our guided notes 13.1. Remember, we're talking about instability after World War One. This is the interwar period. We're talking about what was happening in between World War One and World War Two. What was the feeling like? What was the events that occurred? What was the tension that was happening? And even the things that led to World War Two, right? So here in this second part, we're going to talk about the responses that happened to based on the Great Depression. So if you remember, we talked about the Great Depression before, and it was a time period when there was a economic downturn worldwide, basically in much of the major countries, major superpowers that experienced this economic downturn. So let's take a look and see more about what was happening worldwide. All right, so in Germany, as you see here, this economic downturn really took a toll on Germany. Between Germany and the United States, those were the two countries that was drastically affected. As you see here, during 1932, the worst year of the Depression, about 5.5 million Germans, or 30% of the German labor force, had no jobs. Many of them were unemployed and homeless on the streets because they did not have any work whatsoever. So that was pretty bad in terms of losing jobs and so forth. So think back on like a couple years ago when we had COVID, right? And people were losing their jobs and so forth, and it was, economic hardship because of COVID. So it was a lot like that, right? But even worse. Also, the Weimar Republic. So this was the republic this was a government that was established after World War One. So when Kaiser Wilhelm fled Germany and went to the Netherlands, he didn't look back. The provisional German government at the time established a republic, and that republic was called the Weimar Republic, right? But the Weimar Republic was plagued with a lot of serious problems. So there was inflation, but extreme inflation or hyperinflation, right? To the point where, as we mentioned, that the German marks were worthless, right? Or literally just worthless. Families that were on fixed incomes, especially those of the working class, they saw their life savings disappear. Unemployment skyrocketed, as you see here, 4.3 million by December. And because of all of these problems, especially all of these economic problems and hardships, people are going to turn to someone that is going to save them from this chaos and confusion. And that is what led to the rise of extreme parties and dictatorships. Okay. Now in France, there was faced with a lot. They wasn't as affected by the depression. Yes, they were affected, but not as much as Germany and the United States. However, they did go through a lot of political chaos at this time. They went through several different cabinets, as you see here, 6 different cabinets. However, a lot of leftist or communist, pro-communist parties or socialists came about. And in this one, there was a popular one called the Popular Front government. And they started to make programs for France called the French New Deal, which was patterned off of the New Deal from the United States. In the French New Deal, as you see here, they gave their workers a lot of rights and privileges because, again, remember that the socialist communist idea was to help the working class. They were for the working class because communism was birthed in Russia from the working class, right? So the French New Deal gave a lot of rights to like collective bargaining. That means, having a union to bargain for what their needs are, right? A 40-hour work week industry instead of working 24/7 or working 6 days a week, long hours in the factories and so forth. Now they have a 40-hour work week, right? And they also was able to earn a certain wage. So they established a minimum wage, okay? Now in Great Britain, Again, they experienced a limited prosperity, but they too was affected by the Great Depression. New governments came in during the worst stages of the Depression, trying to balance the budget, trying to use protective tariffs to try to balance the economy. And protective tariffs are taxes. So they're trying to use certain taxes to try to balance the economy and bring it back for Great Britain. However, John Maynard Keynes, as you've seen here, this is his picture. He believed that the British government should create a demand by creating jobs by deficit spending. Okay, and deficit spending, as you see here, is going into debt if absolutely necessary, and in this case it was very much necessary to get the economy back swinging again. So he believed that governments would be able to increase the demands for having jobs, and increase, buyer consumption, meaning that people would start to buy if they started spending a little bit more and going into debt spending, so that they can create the jobs, and once the jobs are created, then people are going to spend. That was the idea. Okay, did it work? Somewhat, not really. But it was a thought, right? It was an idea. In the United States, as I mentioned, Germany was one of those that was hit the hardest, but no other Western nation was hit harder than the United States. As you see here, there were more than 12 million people that were unemployed. Banks were closed, businesses failed, people started to move out west to find homes to live in, because in the urban cities, there was no place to live and people were homeless and living on the streets. Okay. In comes the president, as you see here, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or Franklin D. And the programs that is created are things like public works programs, where it's going to create jobs, such as building bridges, roads, post offices, and etc., so that people are starting to work again. And if people are working again, more than likely they're going to buy again. And if they're buying, that means the economy is stimulated, right? So that's what the idea of the New Deal was. Did it work? Somewhat, not fully. But it did work in some instances. Not enough for it to really, turn the economy around, but it did bring about some positive things to the United States government, such as the Social Security Act, which is what we still have today. The Social Security Act guarantees that after you reach a certain age, which is called, they say it's old age, but 65 or older, once you reach a certain age, your money that is taken out of your account when you work, that is given back to you in a form of old age pension, so that you can live off of that and not have to worry about how you're going to survive after you finish working and retired, right? So the only thing that was really able to bring the United States back into a full thriving economy was World War II, when they started having a growth in weapons industries and making war materials during World War II. Okay. So here is your apply it section. You're going to use this particular chart to answer the questions that is in Edpuzzle and your guided notes. So take a look at the chart, look at it carefully, and answer those questions in Edpuzzle and in your guided notes, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.